Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piskor.
And I'm Tom Scholey.
We are going to look at a strange one today, Leather Nun by Paul Gravett and Peter Stanberry, collection of very unusual comics and odd odds and ends. But before we dive into that, tell us about Red Room, Ed.
Another strange one that'll be maybe in volume 2 of Leather Nun. Red Room comics are in the wild. Murder on the dark web for fun and profit is the name of the game in Red Room comics. There are 3 issues on the stands as we speak. Every issue completely self-contained, so you see an issue, grab an issue, sample it. If you dig it, you can grab another. You're going to get a full meal. Check out this Free Comic Book Day comic, August 14th. It's going to come out for Free Comic Book Day. All original material, probably the best comic I ever made to date, and it'll cost you $0.00. If you want to read these comics before they hit paper, go to my Patreon, patreon.com/Ed Piskor. $3 for the archive there. And I have more than 5 issues worth of material up there as we speak for that $3. Hit my link tree up. You'll be able to get to all the links of these comics.
Tom, where should people look for your latest?
Here's Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. It's the story of Jack Kirby's life told in comic book form, and you can see the story of his military service, how he created so many of your favorite comic book characters and superheroes, and all the crazy genres he worked in, like police stories and funny animal and comic strips about guys playing trumpets. There's also the companion piece, Fantastic Four Grand Design.
Show this in pieces here, man.
Yeah,
it's a much bigger book than your typical than the Leather Nun,
featuring a disappearing Sue Storm on the cover. And you can check out the new comics that I'm working on Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search Tom Scholey, and my YouTube channel, Total Recall Show.
You can join me on patreon.com/Jim Rugg, where you can download out-of-print zines and mini comics of mine, like this collection of ballpoint pen notebook drawings. You can also see a lot of my original art, scripts, process posts, how I make the comics I make, like Street Angel, OCTOBRIANA, and a whole lot more at patreon.com/Jim Rugg. Here's one that would make sense in the Leather Nun.
I think so. Triple nipple.
But we're here today to talk about this book. I loved this book whenever I picked it up because I like weird comics, and this is basically a collection of weird comics. And the format, pretty nice end pages to give everybody a sample of what we're going to get into. These are all comics that are featured in here. But the format is each spread is a different title, so you get the cover, a little bit of sample art, and a little description of what the comic is. Why it's landed on this list of incredibly strange comics. This feels like one of those books that's almost like a gift book.
Yeah, sure.
Buy this for somebody who likes comics, or little coffee table book, something fun.
Like they pull some deep cuts that it's a little more to that for me, because I didn't know so much of this stuff. So it's a rare treat to get my hands on something where I actually get schooled quite a lot. Mm-hmm. So it has some major benefits to me, and I want to give shouts to Paul Gravett because we are in a space where comics has gotten more acceptance in the wider culture and everything. And there are academics involved in the game who are contributing to the culture. I give almost zero of them credence. It's guys like Paul Gravett, Jeet here, and a few others, man, who are really able to talk that talk and not just like parrot what you read in a Art Spiegelman editorial or something.
He really does pull from a lot of different sources.
You got that Mangasia book right there that he did, where he's getting into like the hardcore manhwa and things.
Yeah, this is not. I've bought several of these, and I'll point out, like I have Hanzi is one that I found because it's a. I think Spire is the publisher, and it's nice because he has like all the publication information as well. If you wanted to try to track these down, some of these, I have no idea where you would go to track them down. Like there are definitely deep cuts in here, which I appreciate. Like you say, Ed, there's a lot of stuff in here I've never heard of anywhere else.
The sales mechanism for this is kind of like comics as Kitsch, but then that once he's past that, he's doing the thing, like he's doing what he's interested in, is sort of teaching you about all these things you've never heard of.
He's also not adhering to any one nation's borders.
He's a world scholar, man. Like the very first time I ever even really heard his name, to be honest, was when I was invited to Denmark with Klaus and Ware and Burns, and he was the guy interviewing all those dudes, and I was at first like dismissive, like, oh, is this going to be just like another one of these professorial guys that's talking nonsense? and he asked like the perfect questions, man. So he's in my favor.
This is a Mexican publication. Look how much that kind of resembles like Mad Magazine.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
The Wally Wood inspiration for sure. Absolutely.
I also like this book design in that if you are like, oh, this is really something that's up my alley. This is like one of those public service kind of announcement comics. These are the other recommendations in this book. So kind of a nice book design feature to make it very, find the comics that you like within this list. Which of these is like the others? And I love these kind of comics. These, this is American Cancer Society, but also companies would do this. Like I have comics from like a rubber company where it's about their tires.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's what I'm saying, and I'll put it out there again. Fracking companies. We live in Appalachia, and we're pretty hardcore cartoonists. Now you have to give us several $1 million, but we can create a little mascot that'll be very friendly when you go to small towns and destroy their environment.
We'll make people love fracking through the power of comics.
Exactly.
Now, what's one of the creators of Spider-Man doing in a book of oddball comics?
The funny part about that is how much Mr. A has persevered over the years. So Ditko leaves mainstream comics to, I don't know, lean into his, I guess, world beliefs. And even though it's a little bit weird, it still kind of fits that mainstream style in that it continues to persist. It's a readable comic. It's a superhero, even if he's very much kind of a right-wing type superhero, very extreme. In a way, it might even make more sense today than it would have when he first created it, in that, I think superheroes have gone in this direction in a lot of cases.
Well, yeah, I mean, Mr. A was sort of like shocking and controversial at this time. And Ditko says that it cost him work, that his reputation in the comics field among editors and stuff, and like the fan press or whatever, went down as a result of Mr. A. And like, you kind of wouldn't even blink now with, this kind of character.
The note here is that Mr. A's extremism and his disturbing behavior influenced Rorschach for Watchmen. Which kind of makes sense, coming out of also the Ditko created Question as being maybe the other main ingredient there. There's a few of these Christian comics, right? That Hansi comic earlier is the same publisher, Spire Christian Comics, and I have a number of these things. Al Hartley being the guy who's often signing these. I don't know if he does them all himself or not, but it's almost Archie-esque, these comics, but with a Christian message behind them. The gospel blimp. Combining religion and, I guess, trendy blimp technology.
And dirigibles.
Kids were really into blimps at this time. Here we go. So the title character of this book, the Leather Nun. I was going to pull all these comics, but I thought that might take too long.
Yeah.
But I did think I would pull at least Tales from the Leather Nun, give you an idea what this title comic is about. And it's Last Gasp. It's an underground comic, anthology, pretty common for underground publications, that kind of format. And just flip through a couple of these to get an idea what these are like. Dave Sheridan here on the first page, on the first comic. Look how detailed that art is, man! Like with pointillism and just really fine rendering.
Yeah, you know what? They did those small comics, I forget what the Crumb ones were, but they were that format. And I guess maybe Uncle Ron had some extra and was like, you know what? We need to keep this shit regular comic size.
I'll say this about, for being a gimmick comic, in context to this book, like, it's really well drawn.
Yeah, it's very
This
rigorous drawing.
This is, I would say, exceptional drawing for, undergrounds. It's a wide range of how much quality you're going to get out of those. This one's pretty sharp.
It's a good title, too, to just, like, get people to sort of talk about it, even if it is about denunciation or something.
Yeah, they made it to the cover.
Are we having
of this book.
an amputee love crossover here?
What's cut off on that guy?
Is he missing legs? Maybe not. Maybe
I think it was just a crop.
Just that position. Robert Crumb in here as himself.
And where's the Leather Nun? Well, she's wearing traditional cloth when she's about to chop off his dingus.
Yeah, on the chopping block, the proverbial chopping block.
Just like
Of course, he gets her back by chopping off her head.
And just like look at the porridge coming out, like it's just like so odd.
It's funny to see Crumb and think of like Basil Wolverton and just that history of cartooning that he's pulling from.
Oh yeah,
but applying it a very different way.
Yeah, that was when people met Crumb. They were surprised because they assumed he'd be like an old man, back in the '60s or whatever.
I feel like Spain Rodriguez. You pitch Leather Nun to him. You don't need to go much further.
Oh no.
That's going to be right up his alley. That's the funny thing with this for a theme is I think religion is such a big part of the underground, response against religion. It seems like a good idea for a theme, and geez, could you be more offensive? Right?
Right.
So there's your title comic from this collection, and I wouldn't have bought that comic if not for this book.
Yeah.
It put it on my radar.
Conscious incompetence, man. It lets you know what you don't know.
You want more? There are nuns on page 32, orgies on page 82, and leather on page 36. This is more of the propaganda. Comics is propaganda, Two Faces of Communism. These things are amazing. Published by the Christian Anti-Communist Crusade in 1961, a 36-page comic.
Wow.
It's incredible.
All about one note. Man, this is almost like Guy Peel art.
This is some of my favorites.
Yeah.
You can find this online, so you can see this entire comic if you look this up online. It's uncredited, the art online, and uncredited here. The illustrator is uncredited. But the whole comic is drawn this way. And, Mod Love, totally it's in that Mod style. Just beautiful, too. And they use white in the comic, sort of like a flesh tone color. Mm-hmm. And it just creates this, alien, unique-looking comic.
Yeah, like
art.
a Peter Max. When I learned about this comic, I thought it was one of those fake things where it was like somebody now making a comic that looks like it's from this era. Because, I didn't realize comics were ever this hip during this era. They're usually a couple years out of step. But this is dead on.
It blows my mind that it's not a credited artist even, because it feels like this is something to track down, and it's expensive if you do try to track it down. We always talk about Jason Hamlin. I know he's had a copy at one point. So a beautiful comic, definitely, if you get a chance to see it in person or look it up.
Just looking at this cover, that something disturbing is happening under the surface, man. This is we saw your triple nipple Total Recall chick, man. This is that guy.
Johnny Cab.
Yeah.
This is another artist unknown, but it reminds me of an Ogden Whitney. It's almost clip art, it's so static and the 1950s couple. By the way, published by Greyhound. So this is propaganda, man. Driving like a pro, let Greyhound do the driving.
And you could tell he was never a cartoonist because of that posture.
Ain't that the truth? No hump on his back.
Kayfabers, we all just sat up straighter after I said that.
Look at the sample panel for this thing. This is I guess, a warning about, sinful living or whatever. Mm-hmm. But man, another one, Ed, that you might reference for Red Room. In one ear, out the other. That saw blade looks like it's been used for nefarious purposes, not just cutting down trees.
Yes, sir.
I was looking to see where this was printed, and there's not a lot of information on this one. But if you want more, sin, horror, and retribution are your tag words. I believe this is out of Canada, but I think it's Inuit, produced by Inuits.
Oh, that's cool.
The cover makes kind of sense that way, but this is, I actually like this cartooning a lot. That drawing for this guy blowing smoke out his nose. Pretty strong, but looks very different than the cover. So maybe a team of people. Binky Brown Meets the Holy Virgin Mary, one of the first underground auto-bio comics. We have copies of this. It was also the first artist edition, I believe, is its credit. McSweeney's put out an artist edition of it with Art Spiegelman, I think. And I believe it's the first one. So kind of a major, the penis hands.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you need to get you into this strange collection list. But definitely a comic of historical note. This one's out of Toledo, Ohio.
Well, all right.
28-page free comic. So before Free Comics Day was official, people were doing this stuff as promos and giveaways.
Paul Gravett, he's a British cat. So how the heck did he get these Toledo, Ohio comics, man?
I have no idea.
He's deep. See, that's what I'm saying, man. There are people who contribute to the culture that don't necessarily draw it, but you got to be real and you got to be hardcore. You got to be authentic. If you're coming across the pond and finding comics from Toledo, Ohio that were giveaways, man.
Yeah, that is some real digging. Also, if you're coming across the pond and then transporting this back in your luggage, beware.
Might be on the what do they call that, video nasties list there in Britain?
For sure. This is Eric
Comic
Stanton,
nasties.
Classmate of Steve Ditko at the school that preceded SVA. And self-publisher in the 70s. He's somebody I wouldn't mind looking at. There's a couple of books on him. I just picked up a biography of him. but, for decades made his living self-publishing. And if you see any of his published books, some of them are full-color printing in the 70s, like high-quality, high paper, probably some of the best produced comics of the time period, and totally exist outside of, like, the comic book, conventional sense of what we think of, like, comics and fandom. It's a totally different avenue, and yet sustained a living for the guy for decades.
And he was the guy who, like, shared a studio with Ditko for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
And so I think there were also, like, some rumors that Ditko had, like, contributed to some of his, like, more, like, odd or, done little help in there, here and there.
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation on that.
You could see bits like where there's at least a little ghosting and stuff happening, and there is rumors of like Steve Ditko closet homosexual, like in turmoil, like in that studio, like with Eric Stanton,
Yeah.
but not as a relationship, as like a crush or something.
This is just weirdness. So this is, I think out of Italy, and you can see it's Superman, but like with the S crossed out and Batman credited on the cover.
Is that all you have to do to be able to have Superman in your comic
No,
on the cover?
I think it helps if you're doing it out of Italy. That's an amazing cover.
Yeah, man. Like we all know the song, but we never thought to visualize him.
It's fantastic. This was always fun, like in the early days of the internet when people would start posting like weird comic covers, and you would get this kind of stuff.
Doesn't look far from that classic Madball.
1958. Yeah, Madball would be right in line with it. This is an interesting one. Longshot Comics. This is a slave labor publication, so first publisher of Street Angel, but you can see a sample page from this, and it's just like these dots having conversations back and forth, moving around. Sometimes there's more than two dots conversing, but there I think are 2 issues of this, and it's just
You can find
madness.
those.
A different way to make comics.
More panels than Fantastic Four Grand Design.
Ooh, Tom, you bristled a little bit whenever you were doing the panel count here. Fast Willie Jackson. I thought at first this was an Archie artist moonlighting. I don't think that turns out to be the case, but clearly in line with like the Archie style of the 70s. And I have a few of these that I picked up whenever I was doing Aphrodisiac and kind of looking around at what was going on. Fast Willie Jackson, I think there's about 7 issues of that were published.
John Juan.
By Jerry Siegel,
Whoa.
originator of Superman.
Poor bastard.
Published in 1950. Man, that's a mystery. Just I feel like every bit I read about that comic is just more questions. Yeah, I don't even know what I'm looking at half the time. This is an Australian Western. 1944, so an old Australian comic.
Yeah, like our Western mythology is so deep to like everybody but us. You would see this comic in Overstreet guides and stuff, man.
Yeah, this is interesting. 1947, and the guy who did it, Orrin Evans, was like the first African-American reporter at a major newspaper, left that paper and then published this. And
I think only one issue.
one issue, yeah. I think they had a second issue and something like newsstands refused to carry it or something like that. Ran into some kind of production issue along those lines. Brother Power the Geek, Jack Kirby's old partner Joe Simon, getting some work here at DC Comics. He did a few comics around that time, and I think you could put any of them in this book.
Oh,
Big
yeah.
Fat
They're
Green Team.
super interesting,
I
super
like them.
unique. Prez, I love Brother Power, and I think it was like 2 issues. They canceled it before they got any information back in terms of sales or anything. They just think of that DC
Very
editorial.
weird
They
comics.
did not like this kind. They didn't want their name
Hippie
associated
land.
with this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Definitely not what the kind of comics they were publishing for the most part. This feels like another one of these, like a corporation or somebody putting this out. So on the trying to get people, I guess, recruiting them to California, maybe.
All
The
prunes,
California Prune and Apricot Growers Association.
all prunes are plums, but not all plums are prunes. Riveting. Wow.
Yeah, this is another Italian comic. We were talking off camera beforehand. There's a whole vein of these kind of comics. Very salacious. I don't think I have this one, but what an eye catcher for American comic fans.
And it really just looks like they're artograph projecting John Romita. Like those are John Romita legs and stuff.
Yeah,
And they're
totally.
just drawn boobs on top of it.
This is an improvement on Spider-Man.
Pretty cool color on this thing.
1953.
Wow.
Like, who knows how they're even making this.
Yeah,
in
it looks like Dan
1953.
Dare kind of production.
Yeah, or just like pulp magazine painting cover.
It's another Australian publication. So again, like going back to these guys really putting together a list from all over the world, pulling out all the stops. The Barn of Fear is one that I've thought about trying to track down. This is out of New Jersey, and I guess like an art gallery out of New Jersey from 1977.
See, Doug Munch like wrote a story in there, so they got some actual like real comics people.
Doesn't it make you curious to see this?
Oh,
I mean,
definitely.
it's an underground, but it's coming out of an art gallery in New Jersey.
Yeah, with a Marvel jobber writing the stories.
This is probably one I should track down as well. It's published by Wall's Ice Cream. So it's like the ice cream propaganda comic of 1994.
Sugar's good, and so is cow milk.
This looks like Tijuana Bible
It does,
style.
yeah.
And I assume that's what it is, late 1930s.
And we did, discover that he is a coprophasiac. So what is that biscuit right there, man?
Looks like our Crumb might have drawn that that helping on the plate.
Oh, man.
Brain Boy, I've seen these. This was another one that would pop up a lot in like the early internet days of showing weird comic book covers. I think this was even revived by Dark Horse within the last 20 years.
We must have reprinted everything that's needed to be reprinted, I guess, man.
Ooh, shit comics.
Another
Great
Wally
title.
Wood kind of vibe.
Yeah, this is another one of like, not a real publisher or whatever. It was published as a 68-page square-bound book, and it looks like a serious cartoonist is doing it.
Yeah.
That's a pretty nice illustration. So, but artist and writer uncredited. So somebody just hopping into the publishing game. The lucrative
undergrounds are
world
doing good.
of comics.
Listen, in the underground space, they never printed less than 30,000 copies of certain titles.
This is fun. The marked up cover. Another trick that I've definitely used in different places. And the lover who had no face, literally just a faceless character in this romance
is
comic.
that a fucking Ditko comic?
So bizarre. I think if you could make books of this just going through like the romance comics, probably.
Oh, definitely.
There's a lot of weird stuff there.
Yeah, because it's all old ass dudes who don't get up from the drawing board trying to like remember what young love was like.
I feel like that's an awesome cover. Like the color on him popping out from the background really strong. Even the logo is really great.
There's
Yeah,
something
good
about
logo.
it that feels like it would be like a pack of cards or like firecrackers would be.
It says Youthful Magazines is the publisher, so it doesn't feel like a regular publication, but maybe somebody just jumping in there because it does have a 10-cent cover stamp. And, for that time in the early 50s pre-comics code,
When you see
it's still
this,
lucrative maybe.
You got Booty Rogers on the ones and twos, man.
That's pretty good. Pulling this out, this is something that you could find in Raw.
Yeah.
Being reprinted in the I think it's in the early 90s issues of Raw. They
Yeah.
reprint some of this stuff. And then there's been a collection of Booty Rogers of all things. So
There was
what world do we live in?
there was an episode of like American Pickers or something my dad was watching, and they go to this big barn, and this guy has Booty Rogers originals.
Get out!
Yeah, and the
Oh
dudes
my
are the
God.
dudes are like, never really heard of the guy Booty Rogers, and it's like the person had some affiliation with Booty Rogers, and I was like, might be worth like $300. I'll give you like $300 for it, and they cited the value as like 300, and I'm like, man, not even, and for like a collection of pages, it's like, man, those like 3,000.
Oh man, at least
Yeah.
who know? I mean, all you need is two people that like Booty Rogers
Yes,
because
yes.
it's not like those pages exist anywhere.
Spiegelman and Paul Karasik are bidding it upwards.
This is one of those comics where it's like, man, I wouldn't mind seeing this because I like the way the art looks.
Fuck yeah,
It's
man.
from a cigarette company out of London.
Oh yeah.
And the cigarettes are like Death cigarettes. Like that's what he's pulling out of his pocket. That's the packaging logo on them.
Must be the other
Looks
brand.
ridiculous, right? But
It looks
pretty
like
sharp
Rick Veitch.
duo shade.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like Rick Veitch type art, man.
Richard Campling is the credited artist, but I think it looks neat. Looks totally, if you love those 80s black and white comics,
Dude,
it seems right.
I almost thought this was Green Team, another Joe Simon gimmick.
It's better, dude. Todd Holt and Super Green Beret. This is in Jim Rugg's collection.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a ridiculous, like, half superhero, half army military comic, and just ludicrous. Take note, it's published, it's a Lightning comic. We're going to see another Lightning comic later on in here, but written by Otto Binder, Tom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of legit. I hesitate to say that, but You know, it's published through like
Otto was taking some strange jobs towards the end of his life.
This is fun too. Whenever your characters take the twist into whatever service industry they want to show off here, personal service careers.
Popeye getting manscaped.
Amputee love.
Oh yeah, man. This is
Speaking of underground comics.
Yeah, go check out our spread shop video for Jim's choice of reading materials.
You can do some great things that regular women can't do.
It was such bullshit kayfabe on the inside cover where it was like talking about like this comic is made by amputee people and blah blah blah. Like it's like nah, shut up. Like let me see photos, man. I don't believe you.
I'm surprised Kooky is pictured here because I think this is just kind of like all those teen comics. Like Go-Go and Animal and even like Archie. Eventually, you could string them back, but there were lines of these kind of like teeny bopper type comics. Maybe this issue in particular with the Beatniks and, I don't know, a witch or something going down the road. But written and laid out by John Stanley. Mm-hmm. This is your other Lightning comic.
Okay,
so
also
in addition
an
to Todd Super Green Beret, Fat Man, Human, Flying Saucer, drawn by C.C. Beck.
Wow, so the Captain Marvel team got back together.
Got the band back together. Probably,
Lightning did not strike twice in this case.
They saw Herbie's success and decided to jump on that fat bandwagon.
Yes. I'm surprised like one of the things wasn't fat because I'm sure Herbie's in here. This is really cool looking, man.
Yeah, this one, I'm trying to find like even where it came out of and I don't see anything.
Good color combination.
Publisher uncredited. 1943 though, so that's like an early... you almost imagine somebody coming out of magazine publishing with this kind of like 2 or 3 color production system.
Yeah. Oh, Jim Blanchard.
I remember this coming to being on a shelf at Phantom when it came out.
When we were kicking
2004's publication date on this, so Fantagraphics publication.
Yeah. Look at that butt cheeks. Like
tunnel.
He's funny as shit, man. No pun intended.
Super LBJ.
Super BJ.
Yeah, what the heck? The Great Society comic book. Talk about just straight propaganda.
Yeah. Talk about a wing, man. Like, there's a whole wing of, like, furry type comics. They all came out from, like, Radio Comics, too.
The special extra large lesbian unicorn issue.
Oh, my.
You could move a few units of this probably at the furry convention.
Oh, yeah.
Cosmo. I think this was reprinted because I don't know how many issues of this were published, but I feel like this is one that's been reprinted in the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, I don't know it.
This is an Archie character, so I didn't even know how to contextualize it. So Archie's sci-fi funny animal. They were big in that genre for a while. My Friend Dahmer. We looked at this one. Definitely worth checking out by Durf. A standout comic that he went on to then expand into a graphic novel that's done really well, even a movie adaptation. But went to school with serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. So
yeah, man.
Pretty interesting subject.
Perfect comic.
Yeah, it's a standout. And again, we have a video of that, so check it out. Another one of these romance comics, and again, you could fill up books of the weird romance comics.
Yeah, the Charlton stuff is funny in particular, man, because there's such bad production quality and a lot of kissing, a lot of beautiful ladies and stuff. And that off-register pink lipstick, man, sometimes that shit is on her eyeballs.
That's so true.
You know what I'm saying? Just so trashy.
That's hilarious. If you read, so Dad would have a fit if he knew a Jewish boy was trying to kiss me. One of their, like, you want more? Christianity is one of their sub-genres here of what you're looking at.
So, like,
look at the arguments, too. Like,
oh, Jesus.
Godzilla versus Barkley. What did we look at this for? Crossovers.
Yeah.
In our crossover episode. That's one of those weirdo comics that... I love the weirdo comics, and that certainly fits.
One of the great ad campaigns.
FTW, published by Badass Publications. This is your post-apocalyptic, biker gang kind of world, Mad Max. And one that I would definitely check out if I found it anywhere.
See, this is where Paul Gravitt can, like, raid our boxes for Volume 2, man. Because I have some things that could stand up to that.
Yeah, I think so, too. It feels exactly in that 80s black and white explosion realm. Savings and Loan, putting out their comics. Man, everybody made comics. And look at this.
Yeah, what is this?
Octobriana. This is the first time I ever saw Octobriana anywhere. This is what made me track down the Octobriana book that led to my Octobriana comic. So, thank you, Paul. Probably owe you a copy of Octobriana Blacklight for that one. Scarface. This is a Jack Chick publication. This is the comic book, the comic book size publications, not the little Chick track, but published, I think, about 25 issues of these Crusader comics, and you could have put any of them in this weird slot.
Yeah.
I bet Paul had a hard time picking which one to hold up there.
That's a legendary one. Like in a documentary, that one's mentioned a lot. Probably some of the best art of those color comics.
Patriotism, War, and Christianity for Chaplains at War. This is just like you're pulling the words out of a hat and making a comic out of them. Oh, there you go. The Fat Fury is included.
There he is, man, with his magical lollipops.
Herbie in the flying human saucer should be doing a team up.
His Deus
We need
Ex
to look at
Machina.
Herbie at some point. Ogden Whitney artwork, just bizarre. And there's I don't know how many issues of this, man. It ran for probably at least 20 some issues, so semi-popular, but definitely an oddball comic. Remington making their How to Shoot comics for kids.
Look what happens to a coconut when blasted by one of these high speed.
This is a Mexico City publication. 28 pages though, so it's like comic book format, not like those historietas that we've talked about in the past. Kona,
Is this Sam Glanzman shit?
it is Sam Glanzman.
Yeah.
Dell publication. I always love this issue because it has a giant just house cat.
Yeah,
as,
it's
like
very
his
cute.
enemy.
Yeah.
But this is a kind of adventure comic. I think that panel's pretty indicative of what you get. It's like Dinosaur Island, and he's like the savage there with the trap family.
This is a favorite comic of a lot of people. Like, this is the one that, like, people who say they're Sam Glanzman fans, they point to Kona.
Yeah, this is one of those classic oddball comics. Dan Nadell, one of those collections of like comics out of time, reprints a Kona issue. I've heard Steve Bissett go on about Kona.
Tim Truman.
And I think Kevin Heisinger redrew an issue of Kona as like a mini comic. So yeah, it's definitely a popular comic for what we're looking at in this book. One you can find too in back issues. I love this art. So Will Eisner being represented here in his in the PS books. And some of these have been reprinted in a nice collection that's easy to find. I don't know about all of them, and I don't know about this particular one, but I love the lettering on her. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Reagan's Raiders, probably one of my favorite 80s black and white explosion books. I don't know what to say that the art doesn't say itself. Like, it's kind of a perfect comic. Add some Rich Buckler in there, and you're off to the races.
Perfect for that time period, man. It is an interesting way. I mean, this is the last image.
Yeah.
That's a interesting headliner.
Yeah, I realize now they're not alphabetical order. I was trying to figure out what order they're in. I can't decode that, but
Maybe to a British fella, like having that Reagan stuff is a big deal.
I don't disagree with him. I like that book. So, kind of a fun list of comics to track down what you can find in there. Definitely entertaining, and definitely a bunch of comics that I've never seen anywhere else.
That's the fun thing too, man. Like, with technology, with the internet, the hunt is almost meaningless now. Like, it's too easy, right? But a book like this is giving you some deep cuts that are going to be a challenge to find.
Yeah, I think it's hard to believe that he could put this together. It would be almost impossible to actually reassemble this.
I think so. Yeah, for sure. Anything else? Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. Jimmy, what's out there?
Join me on patreon.com/JimRugg, where you can see my weird comics. You can download a few of them. You can see original art, scripts, how I make the comics that I make, including OCTOBRIANA. All of that at patreon.com/JimRugg.
Tom.
Check out Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, Fantastic Four Grand Design, and my YouTube channel, Total Recall Show.
Red Room Comics in the Wild, 3 issues on the stands as we speak. Each issue completely self-contained. Murder on the Dark Web for fun and profit. See an issue, grab an issue. It's a whole story. If you want to read the comics before they hit paper, patreon.com/EdPiskor. $3 for the archive there. You could get to links to all this stuff in my link tree in the description below this video.
You can subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. You can find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts and merchandise at the links below this video.
Given those marching orders, Jimmy, we're going to be on our way.
Read more comics.